You know, I always say it's never a bad idea to put a little grease behind your nuts. Welcome to Dirt, Sweat, and Gears, YouTube's cavalcade of catastrophe. You know, now that I think of it, I really am going to have to get a horse because these cars are not getting me anywhere. We're back here with the Miata, and almost immediately after I finished filming last week's video, the car started making horrible noises again. It started making a valve lifter ticking noise, and something's going on with the oil pressure sensor. What's happening is the car starts up. When it's cold, it runs just fine for a while, and later on, after driving it for a bit, I'm at a stoplight, and the oil pressure goes down to zero, or at least the gauge goes down to zero. And so while I'm paying a lot more attention to it as I'm driving, I'm starting to see the needle kind of spaz out a little bit. And that kind of tells me that at the very least, the oil pressure sending unit is bad because I keep checking the oil and I am not losing a whole lot of oil. Even when it was making the loud lifter tick noise, I still had oil. So I'm actually really kind of confused as to what's going on. So in this video, we're going to focus primarily on that. And if some of the other things that we've been waiting on come in the mail, in the meantime, we're going to go do it. Like, for example, the headlights. I wanted to work on the headlights in my last video, but I had to order new arms for the pop-ups. And we're also going to just pretty much try to look for anything that comes up along the way. But this week is going to be my primary focus because I really need, for one, I need oil pressure. I need that valve ticking to go away. And I also need accurate information in the car. And I think there's a combination of all of those things not happening. So to start things off, I want to get a look at the oil itself. I'm due for an oil change anyway. I have not changed the filter since the car was rebuilt. And I have poured in about 3 quarts of oil because I've been losing oil from the oil pan gasket. However, all of the crap that builds up inside of an engine, because I haven't changed the oil, because I haven't replaced the filter, all of that crap is still in the car. So my suspicion is that the filter is going to look really bad, and there may even be some stuff at the bottom of the oil pan. Beyond that, I've also ordered a new oil pressure sending unit because the symptoms of what's happening with the gauge inside the car is consistent with that repair. I will go ahead and link to the YouTube video that gave me that information. I didn't test it directly, and while I could, I'm really still at the point with this car that if I didn't replace it, I'm just going to go ahead and replace it so that I'll feel better about it. I have no idea where this old oil pressure sending unit came from, or if it's got the idiot switch from the later year motors that Mazda changed out to, I assume, to save cost. So that said, let's get this oil out of this car and see what we're dealing with. So far, it just looks like dirty oil that needs to be changed. Doesn't look remarkable in any way. So that's a very good sign. There's not all kinds of glitter on the plug. Nothing came off on my hands that seems worrisome. This is very, very encouraging that all I needed to do was change my oil. All right, let's see what's going on. Yeah, there's a couple of specks in there. Definitely see a little bit of glitter. Again, I did put brand new lifters in it. So that could have been the source of the glitter. This is like seriously tiny little trace amounts. I am not concerned about it. But yeah, there is a little speck right there. I'm not too concerned about it. I am going to definitely putting fresh oil in it. And yeah, See, this did need to be changed. I probably should have changed it a lot sooner, considering I put new components in it. So I've got the oil in, I've got the filter on, and one of the things that I think I'm going to start doing just as a habit. So this isn't considered mandatory, and I know most shops won't do this, but I popped off the connector for the cam angle sensor, and I cranked the engine over without running it for probably a good 30 seconds in like 5 to 6 second intervals. And that was because I wanted to build up pressure in the block to fill up the oil filter and to get some oil moving around, new oil up to the top of the engine. So I did that, and I had oil pressure, and I've reconnected it. So let's start this car up. I can already hear that the valve tick is much better. I don't know what was going on before. I'm going to say that I definitely needed an oil change, and this car may very well have been misbehaving, at least in terms of the ticking noise, because the filter was clogged, because the oil had some buildup. You can see the needle is very much still misbehaving. So I have been driving the Miata around for about a day or so now, and I haven't noticed it misbehaving at all. So the problems I was having, it was just because the car needed an oil change. Kind of a lame reason to misbehave, but I'll take it. It was really easy to fix. So next we're going to cure the spasms in my oil pressure gauge. I have a new oil pressure sending unit. This is going to make sure that I am getting an accurate reading inside the car to know if I should be worried or not. Because right now, I'm just kind of guessing. I don't like guessing when I can have the information right in front of me. So I am next going to disconnect the battery, because this thing sits really close to the starter, and for all I know, there are exposed wires on the starter, and if I go anywhere near it with a wrench, I'm going to hit it with that wrench and send some sparks, maybe electrocute myself. It's not that bad coming from a little car battery, but yeah, I don't want to fry my battery, so I'm going to disconnect it before I do this job. Oh, well, this might have been the most difficult minor repair I have ever done on this car. This might be the most difficult minor repair anybody could ever do. So in the video that I watched, I was pretty well prepared, because the guy said that it's basically really hard. So thankfully I bought 87 wrenches, because I had exactly the wrench that I needed to fit on to this oil pressure sending unit. It's a stubby 17 millimeter. He went up from above and dug his hands underneath the intake manifold. I chose to go in from underneath. So I chose to go underneath because I can actually kind of see it. Well, it's not there anymore because I removed it, but you can... I had a little bit, well, I'm not going to say an easy time. It was actually awful. It was miserable. It was bad. But I was able to kind of fish the wrench up in there, and once I got it into position over the nut, it was on there with 1,000 pound-feet of torque. So once I got it positioned on there for the first time, I went and got... So the wrench was very well lodged on the nut itself, and I went in with a crowbar underneath and just kind of set the crowbar on the top of the wrench and then pried down against the intake manifold. So that got the party started, and from there I was able to move it with my hands, assuming I could position it. Hard part was repositioning the wrench to turn it over and get another turn, and that is because, well, I'm 38, I'm not as young as I used to be, and I have arthritis in my right wrist, and it was painful. So I had to take multiple breaks just to get this stupid thing off, and then I was able to twist it off. So I am expecting to have no trouble at all getting this one on. Nope, Nope, everything's gonna be perfectly fine. I am not going to swear a single time. Oh, for f***'s sake. So either I learned a hack or I'm about to spray oil all over the place. So let me explain what happened. So I put the new one on. Let's just say that's on. And I noticed that there's a hex end on this thing. So I went into my toolbox and I found a 1 3/16 socket and was able to fit it over the top. And there was just enough room to use an extension and this here large ratchet to just turn it and ratchet it on. Will I get enough torque to seal it up without ripping this thing apart? I don't know. But if that's how to do it, there's no reason to believe you couldn't remove it using the same method, because getting to this little nut down here was awful. And I don't ever want to do it again. And I'm really, 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 really sorry I didn't notice that there was a hex top on this thing. I still have to plug this thing in, and then we're going to start the car up and see what happens. And there we go. How much does it wiggle? It wiggles a little bit. But it's showing quite a bit higher than the old one was. So I think that's because this one is a little more accurate. Yeah. All right, let's go underneath the car and see if we're leaking. Oil filter. You should see it. If it's leaking, it would be leaking just to the left of the filter. And I think I'm in good shape. So now I just have that enormous oil pan gasket leak back there. But we're not doing that today. We're actually not going to do that for a while. Hey, would you look at that? Another wheel hub shows up. So in my last video, we replaced the passenger side front wheel hub. And today we're going to replace the driver's side. Now, I already did some really nice, detailed, thorough instructions on how to clean the spindle. So I'm going to spare you guys that instructional content. So let's just waste no time. We're going to pop off the old hub and get this ready to go. The new hub is on. I do have a tendency to go a little heavy on the grease, but in general, I don't feel like there's such a thing as too much grease, unless you're like, glomming the whole thing on there and you absolutely can't even get this on. But going a little heavy on grease for me, in my opinion, isn't that big of a deal, because as long as you're not going too crazy with it, it'll just squirt out the sides. And I got a little bit of that here. You see in the back, I got a little bit out there. So my lock nut did tighten a little bit farther beyond its previous position. And I'm not sure if that's just because the bearing was designed differently or whatever. I did hit it. So first I drove it at number 2 on my big impact, and then I just gave it just a really, really brief whack at the highest setting. I didn't want to destroy the threads. I didn't want to over torque it, but I wanted to make sure it was damn hell good and on there. So I think I'm going to live with this. I think I'm okay with it. It definitely turns. It doesn't make noise, and it turns. This is a first for me. This is the first time I've been genuinely annoyed with Treasure Coast Miata. Guys, seriously, stop sending me bent caps. Like, really, this has been pulled off before. This sucks, man. You can see it's like, what? I don't know what the hell is oozing out of there. God damn. So, that is very weird. Wow. So I have to order a new cap for this side as well. I just don't want to put on bent up caps and leave it like that. I think it's going to take in water. It's going to do weird stuff like ooze. And I'm really kind of surprised that they sent me 2 beat up, bent, broken caps twice in a row. So yeah, I'm really annoyed with that. I hope that's not an indication of the quality of their work. I'm sure it's not. I've had really good success with them so far. So I'm just gonna eat this one. I'm gonna go buy another one. It's only $8. Okay, well, it is raining buckets outside, and because my garage has no electricity or insulation, it is really cold and dark in here. But I really have to try to get some of these things taken care of because there's some safety concerns. The first being, most importantly, the headlights. I really, 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 really want to get these new headlights in, which means I need to get these new headlight arms in so that the new headlights aren't flopping around and pretty much break on day one. So I need to get that done as quickly as possible. Next will be this new center cap for the wheel hub. I'm going to do the one on the passenger side first because that one was actually way worse than the one that I reused on the left. So that'll be really quick and easy because that will come out really quick and easy. I'm going to do that after I do the headlight arms though, because this is actually the most important. And lastly, I have a new throttle cable. I'm going to do that when it's not freezing cold and raining, probably in a couple of days, probably for this video later on. But this is also a huge safety concern because well, I know my wife doesn't put her foot on the floor, but I do quite regularly. And just in general, when you step on the gas pedal, you shouldn't hear a crunching noise. So that is also important, but less important than being able to see while you're driving. Let's get to work. Well, I got the first bucket out, and it wasn't that hard. It is 50 times more difficult than it needs to be because it is cold and dark, but I managed to get everything taken apart. I first took the headlight out, and then I took the lid off, and then I just unbolted it from the sides here and lifted it out. And then from there I was able to pop off the old arm. Let's take a look at it over here. And the old arm, the other plastic retainer thing was there on the pivot ball, but it was not attached to the plastic at all. So yeah, I popped that off. It went flying. I have no idea where it is now. And then I went ahead and cleaned up the pivot balls. I don't know if that's really necessary or anything. I just think it's generally a good practice to keep your balls clean. So let's put this back together with the new arm installed, and then we'll move on to the other side. Now I have the headlight on, and I had to be able to answer the question, is it brighter? And well, from this angle, it's a little bit hard to tell because the driver's side is all like clouded and everything. But let's just circle around. Well, I'm really glad I did this because the headlight arms were flopping around and now they are rock solid. So that alone makes this project worth it. In terms of the headlights themselves though, I don't know. We'll see how they look when I get out on the road. But as far as I could tell right now, I may end up putting these headlights either in my Maverick or in my Studebaker because they're just not doing it for me in this car. This car, I was really, really hoping for them to be substantially brighter. And the reason for that is because it's a small car, it's hard to see on the road, and I really didn't have that much visibility in front of me. I wanted a lot more visibility, especially in something that I am planning to daily. So it wasn't a waste of money because I do have 3 other cars that have round headlights, 4 other cars actually. I have the Jeep, the Maverick, the Studebaker, and the TR7 all have round headlights. So I certainly can use these in any of these other cars, just depending on what I want to do. They look fantastic if you're going for a OEM classic look. These are going to look amazing on my Maverick for sure. That's very likely where they'll end up going. But on this car, I'm probably going to go with something a little more It'll end up looking more modern. It'll end up looking more, import tuner look, simply because, oh yeah, I have to put that screw in. Simply because it needs to be brighter. I really, really need it to be brighter. I also very well may end up adding fog lights to this car just because I just want more lights. I want more visibility. Ooh, look, more goodies arrived. So I've got lights. This will fit the center taillight. Also hoping this will fit some of the dome lights up there. I don't know yet though, but it'll definitely fit the center taillight. These are license plate bulbs. I'm going to replace those right there, and this is going to be my reverse light. Now, this is the same reverse light that I got on the Prelude. I was really happy with how bright it was. They're probably not DOT legal brightness, but for reverse lights, I don't think that's a problem. I would be concerned if it were for turn signals or for brake lights, but you're only backing up for a few seconds at a time, and you really do want that extra brightness. So I really like them, and I'm going to put them in this car too. Well, that looks really good. The turn signal lights were a fail, so was the center brake light. Neither of them came on. The center light doesn't come on even with the old bulb. The license plate lights did not come on with the new bulbs, so I must have gotten the wrong bulbs. I'm pretty sure that the bulbs that I did get will work for another one of my cars, so I'm gonna try to look that up first before I go returning them and buying something new. But in the meantime, this is awesome. The reverse lights are nice and bright. It is actually most definitely brighter than when I had these bulbs in the reverse lights. So thankfully, I was able to just swap them around. And so now the turn signals are nice and bright, but they're not too bright. The reverse lights are really bright. And the brake lights are exactly what they need to be. This is fantastic. I'm happy with this so far, except for that center brake light. I believe you are required to have that by law, so I need to diagnose that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna check some fuses. I'm gonna check some things before I get too wound up about that center brake light. But yeah, let's move on to the throttle cable and the center cap. Just for giggles, I wanted to check the interior lights because they weren't coming on at all. So I managed to pop it out, and when I was fiddling with it, trying to pop it out, I noticed it coming on and off kind of intermittently. So when I turn it over, check this out. This is nasty. So I should be able to just clean this up and have a working interior light. That looks much nicer. Let's see if this works. Well, it's better than nothing. It doesn't work in the on position, and sometimes it doesn't even work in the door position. But it does turn on and off with the door trigger, so it's really better than nothing. So if it doesn't come on, you just got to give it a little tap. That's good enough for now. I'll fix that a little bit better later on. I'm pretty sure it's got the wrong bulb in it anyway. It was a little too big, and it was really trying to ruin my day. So yeah, a dome light bulb was Armageddon. Yeah, I am definitely going to revisit this. In the meantime, I do have some less brokenness about it, and I'll be able to find the keyhole much easier with at least some kind of light. Oh my God. I swear, this car, I cannot believe how many things are so broken in this car. Let's press on. Well, the throttle cable, I'm not going to say it was a resounding win because I don't think it needed to be replaced. After pulling the old one out and comparing them side by side, I feel like I could have just cleaned the old one and might have been fine, but not that I have any regrets, because I really did not have confidence in the old cable, and now I know it's new. And the other benefit, I think, is that now it more readily springs back. I think it may have been binding at some point, because it just wasn't, the pedal wasn't coming back up as quickly. So we'll see from driving how it feels and if that actually solved my throttle sticking problem. One of the things I don't like is underneath how nasty that spring is. The spring underneath the pedal itself isn't terribly springy. So I don't know if the spring is just old or if that's the way it's supposed to be, but the cable does pull it back a lot easier, or a lot sharper now. Getting down there was a nightmare. Miata Yoga is like level 10 stuff, and I'm not that flexible. It was difficult. I ended up actually kind of ripping the clip out from the firewall side because I could not stand to be under the dashboard for very long. So I ripped it out from the other side, and that actually worked. Let's try starting this. Oh, I should probably put the key in. Now that I have this little dome light, I can see where the key goes. I also have a light on my camera, but you get the idea. Let's turn all this crap off. Okay. All right. Now I have a very low idle, probably because the throttle may have been holding the valve open instead of the idle control valve holding it open. But that's cool. I'm going to give it a stab. I have my hand on the key just in case it tries to fly away on me. I'm going to give the throttle a stab. Seems okay. I mean, I do notice the pedal stick a little bit. That could be because it's still binding on the carpet. And I won't be able to do anything about that for a while. I would have to do an effort on the interior. I'd have to gut the interior and try to solve it then. But aside from that, it does seem to be behaving a little bit better. And I am going to have to readjust the idle and timing, most likely, if the throttle was in fact holding the butterfly valve open. Well, we have a break in the weather, and we should take advantage of it. Let's go out for a test drive. Alright, nice to have some oil pressure. Nice to have an oil pressure gauge that works. We'll get a good test of our throttle once the car warms up. So far, everything seems to be going well. Let's take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the future. The future for this car, hopefully, will be uneventful. The future for this car, hopefully, I won't need to do a whole lot to this car for a while. I do have plans to buy a new car for my wife pretty soon. We are actively planning, so that will be a really fun reveal for you guys. I would love to take you on that journey once that happens. Once this car is done, I need to finish up the Jeep, which you're going to see in probably my next video, hopefully. And after the Jeep, I've got some work to do to the Prelude. Now, the Prelude is very, very, very close to 300,000 miles, and I want to celebrate my 300,000 mile journey with a nice drive through the mountains, something just to have a lot of fun. And I don't want to limp the car across that line. I don't want to limp the car across 300,000 miles. I want it to be bold and confident and fun and not hilariously broken. So I've resolved to just not drive it until I fix the coolant leaks, fix the oil leaks at the very least. I don't think I'm going to do the suspension work before we cross that finish line. I want to just have it reliable and not leaking. And I don't want to have to worry about it. That's really my main goal. I don't want to be driving this thing going, oh man, I'm going to be overheating. Maybe I'm losing oil. I just don't want any of that on my mind. I just want to enjoy the experience, enjoy watching it roll over, and capture that on video for you. I think that'll be just so much fun. And once the prelude's done, I want to start digging out some projects that you guys seem to love that I have been not working on. The 3 cars that get the most views on YouTube of mine are the TR7, the Studebaker, and the Maverick. And I want to get all 3 of those things in my garage for some work. The Maverick is in my garage, but it needs some expensive work, so I'm really kind of putting it off. I know how expensive it's going to be, but it's really going to transform the car. It's going to make it the car that it should have always been. The TR7 is actually probably what we're going to work on next, because I have to move it so that I can put the Studebaker where I want to put it. So I have to move the TR7, and I'm going to take that opportunity to hopefully get it more or less so that I can move it around my my property without too much trouble. I'd eventually like to work on it such that I can drive it, you know, to get groceries or something benign, just to know that it runs. And I want to make it something that maybe I don't rely on, but something I can take a few blocks for fun and eventually do some really serious work on it, because that car needs a lot. But after I get some work on the TR7, I want to bring the Studebaker in. I want to fix the brakes, because that's the next thing. Once I fix the brakes, it's all going to be suspension from there, and then it'll be a driver, really. Aside from, you know, needing a whole bunch of work on the engine, and probably eventually going to get rid of that motor, but that's long term. All right, now that we're warmed up, I'm going to turn around and we're going to test the throttle. It still sticks. Not as bad. I think it is catching on the floor now. It is definitely, because when we looked underneath the car, we were sawing, it was catching under that piece of plastic on the carpet. And I think that's what I felt just now. But it's not, otherwise it's not sticking. It was, yeah, this is fine. I'm considering this fine. I do want to check the timing, check the idle, make sure everything's still in line. But other than that, this car's drivable. It is a much better car, and hopefully it'll be a lot safer with some better lighting. I'm gonna call this a win. This was a great project. This was a great thing to do during the Christmas New Year holiday. And I have a fun little car now. Well, I'm going to call that a video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe, comment. If you don't like what you see, leave leave a comment anyway. Maybe you think I should have done more instructional videos on cleaning wheel spindles. Either way, the algorithm loves your comments, so please keep them coming. And as my camera falls, I'm going to take that my cue. Have a good week. I'll see you next time.